Alright, so this video is going to cover using the midpoint formula. So when we use the midpoint formula, it's to find the midpoint of any segment on a coordinate plane if we know the endpoints. So we look at the formula here, we see, so for any point x1, y1, x2, y2, so arbitrary x, arbitrary y values, we find the midpoint. So this is the x coordinate of the midpoint, and that's the y coordinate. And the way we find the midpoint is, notice, this is just the average of the two x values. So if you add them up and divide by 2, so it's the average of the x and then the average of the y. I think I could spell average. Yeah. So x1 plus x2 divided by 2 is our x coordinate, and y1 plus y2 divided by 2 is the y coordinate. And when you combine those two together, you get the midpoint. So find the midpoint of CD with C25 and D811. So it's really just two separate uses of the formula. So the x is going to be 2 plus 8 divided by 2, which is 10 divided by 2, 5. And the y coordinate would be 5 plus 11 divided by 2, 16 divided by 2, which is 8. So that means the midpoint is the point 5, 8. So another example, same thing. Now our point is, this is going to be x1, y1, and this is x2, y2. And the way you name the points doesn't matter. You just need to, again, average the two x values. So the x is going to be -3 plus 13 over 2, which is 10 over 2, which is 5. And the y coordinate is -15 plus 20 over 2, which is 5 over 2, which is 2.5. So here the midpoint would be 5, 2.5. Okay, so this is the simple use of the formula just to get the midpoint. Another way we frequently use this formula is to find the endpoint if we know the midpoint and another endpoint. So we're going to solve this one problem in two ways. Method one is using a graph. So we have M as the midpoint, and point G is at 5, 5. And then we know M is the midpoint of FG. So I'm going to go over my graph and graph the point 3, 1. So this is M. And then G is up here at 5, 5. And I know F has to be somewhere down here in this general region, right? Because this is G to M, so F should be somewhere down in this area, right? But we don't know exactly where. But the way we can find it is we know that M is halfway. So to get from G to M, I went 1, 2, 3, 4 down, and a 1, 2 over. So 4 down, and 2 to the left. So if that's halfway to point F, then to get to point F, I'm going to do the same thing. 1, 2, 3, 4 over 2. So I went 4 and 2 again, and I landed, and this has to be where point F is. And that's at 1 and 3. So this is point F. So F is at 1, -3. I can do this same thing algebraically. So again, we had f at 1, negative 3. Algebraically, I can do the same thing. So algebraically, we're gonna use the midpoint formula again, which remember was x1 plus x2 over 2, and then y1 plus y2 over 2. And it's going to be two separate short algebra problems. So to get the x-coordinate, we have to solve the equation. So we're going to solve the equation 5 plus x over 2 equals 3. So I'm just using the midpoint formula, but now I know what the midpoint coordinate is. So this is 3 from here, and the 5 is from here. So I just substitute it in, and I'm solving it backwards now. So now I can just take this equation and solve for x. So multiply by 2 on both sides. So now I get 6 equals 5 plus x. So then x is equal to 1. Same answer we got over here, right? And then I do the same thing with the y coordinate. So to get the y coordinate, I'm going to do 5 plus x. Well, let's change that to y, because now we're solving for y. So 5 plus y over 2 equals 1. And then if I solve this equation, so I would multiply by 2. So I get 5 plus y equals 2. Then I can subtract 5, and I get y equals negative 3. Again, same as what I got over here. So again, we have the endpoint f is at 1, negative 3. So this pretty much covers most of the ways that we use midpoint formula. Yeah, so now continue on to the midpoint formula practice on the back.